But this is a new extraordinary package of sanctions. Will these work? Did the international community underestimate Vladimir Putin's appetite for a full-scale war? Talk about that. The scrum is here. Joyce Napier, CTV's Ottawa Bureau Chief. Tonda McCharles, parliamentary reporter with the Toronto Star. And our special guest this round is Bob Rae. He is the Canadian ambassador to the United Nations. Good to see you all on another extraordinary day. Bob Rae, Ambassador Rae, your reaction to Western nations cutting off a certain number of Russian banks from SWIFT, and what signal overall does that send to the Russians?
I think we're squeezing the Russians pretty hard, and I think that's good. That's what we should be doing. I think there will be more steps to come in the future because it is having an impact and will have an even greater impact. We have to undermine the Russian economy, and we have to undermine the confidence that the people of Russia have in their leader, Vladimir Putin.
Tonda, Canada was working hard to do this. What does this tell you about this package of sanctions that the world is now issuing against Russia?
Well, potentially it can really affect Russia's ability to deal in a whole range of affairs. It's targeted a number of Russian banks and financial institutions. There may still be more to come in that. But what I was struck by over the weekend is, Friday, we were talking about European countries who weren't willing to do this. Today, we see Germany's all in, Italy's all in, Japan has come on board. So this is a very concerted display of strength and unity among Western allies. And I'm not sure, if we've seen that before, and hopefully that pressure will keep up, because at least we've heard now Russia talking about the possibility of some kind of negotiation somewhere.
Yeah, Joyce, weigh in on that. An extraordinary, the speed at which the West has allied on sanctions, but also now on sending armaments into Ukraine.
Well, yes. I mean, look at Germany. A few days ago, as Tonda was saying, they were saying no, no, and they have sent lethal aid to Ukraine, and also increased their military budget by $100 million a year. So, there is an effort by the allies, by NATO, which this has breathed a new life into NATO. I mean, a few years ago, we were talking about whether this was an alliance that was, obsolete. So, what's happening is it's uniting the world and also uniting the people of Ukraine. There's fire in their belly. I mean, clearly this president, who a few weeks ago even was thought to be perhaps weak. The Russians thought he was going to flee. They were so sure. So they have underestimated the situation in Ukraine anyway, and the resolve of the people and of the president.
You're right to point out President Zelensky is emerging as an extraordinary figure. Bob Rae, just pick up on that, on the shift in the international order. As Joyce just pointed out, Germany broke a long-standing pattern of not sending weapons to conflict zones. They sent over 1,000 anti-tank weapons. What's next from the international community, and is Russia now isolated?
I think apart from Belarus, who they've taken over, Russia is isolated. He wasn't able to raise troops from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan said no. He's in a very perilous position, I believe, but we can't let up. And I think this is a thing we have to emphasize. What this shows, Evan, is something about public opinion that I've always said. Events matter and leadership matters. And we've seen events changing and we've seen leadership change. And leadership has come from President Zelensky, but it's also come from the entire people of Ukraine. They're showing how resistance can actually turn the tide. And now it's up to us to fill in, to back up, to do all we can on sanctions, to do all we can on supplying the weapons and the arms that they're going to need. But we're entering into a very difficult phase. Belarus is sending in its own troops. It's going to continue to be very challenging. But we really all have to step up. This is democracy's moment in real time that we're watching.
Well, and I think Bob Rae's right, Tonda. This is a long game now. This is not going to end tomorrow. Does Canada now, what are the pressure for Canada, for example, on lethal weapons, sending more lethal weapons to Ukraine, Tonda?
there's great pressure. And to date, we've seen Canada put on standby 3,400 extra troops in case NATO requires them. But Canada so far has sort of put all its efforts on the diplomatic side and trying to coordinate allies. I mean, let's face it, a small middle power. There's probably not, as many military experts have told me, a big arsenal gap there that Canada can rush in to fill, given UK and US. But look, I think that there's tremendous pressure now on governments everywhere to look united among themselves internationally, but domestically as well, to show united fronts that everybody's basically on side for this, that there is no daylight between political leaders across the West.
Last word on this one to you, Joyce. Canada now has been leading and part of the big sanctions. What else does Canada need to step up? What are you looking for next?
Well, I think what Canada is looking for is to protect those other countries, neighboring countries that are not part of NATO. Moldova is one of them. He spoke with the president this weekend. The prime minister spoke with the president. You know, there is a danger that we know that this is an expansionist president, the Russian president. He will go into countries that are not part of NATO. He thinks that will paralyze the allies, but it doesn't seem to be working. I think that, Mr. Putin has underestimated the situation.
All right, lots to come. This is Democracy's Moment, as Ambassador Rae said. Bob Rae, Tanya McCharles, I appreciate both of you joining us this morning. I know Joyce is going to stick around.